Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today we read a story from Nosleep by user likeeyedid. Let's begin. Something is wrong with the snow. I woke up in the most beautiful little place you could imagine. An old town with merchant houses and cobblestone streets overlooking multiple hills. And on top of one of those stood this small Baroque castle. I had been ecstatic about coming here for a small weekend trip with my boyfriend for our 1-year anniversary. There's hardly ever any snow in the city where I live, so being here in December, with the smells and lights of the Christmas markets, felt like a dream. When we arrived the day before, the air was crisp, and all the people in the hotel, the restaurants and shops were so welcoming. There wasn't any snow yet, but you could smell in the air that it would be coming soon. When I woke up the next morning, the light coming from outside was almost blinding to my sleepy eyes, and I felt a headache settling in. I groggily got up from bed to close the blinds when I saw why it was so light out. A white sheet was gently resting on the homes and streets. It should have been so beautiful if it weren't for all the dark red stains on the white snow. Little drops here and there, but then there were whole puddles as well. "Jacob?" I whispered, but my boyfriend didn't react. I repeated his name, louder this time, and he loudly yawned. "What time is it?" he asked. "Come here," I instructed. "It snowed." "That's great, honey. I'll look at it later," he said and turned around. "Please come look at this." He slowly got up from bed and walked towards me. When he looked outside, his expression changed from annoyed to wide awake. "What the hell is this?" We stared out of our window. "It almost looks like blood." "Wine, maybe?" he asked, still staring out the window. I shook my head. "I don't think so. And how did it get there? Everything around looks untouched." Jacob took a deep breath and turned away from the window. "Ava, do you remember anything about last night?" I swallowed. "I remember a lot of mulled wine." "Yeah, same. No idea how we got back here, though," he laughed. Jacob stumbled back to bed. "I'm sure there's a good explanation for it," he mumbled. I kept staring out the window. A couple came into view. They walked down the street of our hotel, right past one of the bigger puddles, but they didn't even look at it. After a while, I heard Jacob snoring, but I was fixated on the outside. More people came down the street. Some started shoveling away the snow in front of their houses. Nobody acknowledged the red snow. After Jacob finally woke up again, we made our way down the creaky wooden stairs to get some breakfast in a cafe. The hotel was small and very old. The entire ground floor had this really ugly red and green carpet, and all the furniture looked like it was from the 80s, but that kind of made it more charming. It almost felt like visiting your grandparents. "Good morning. Did you have a good first night here?" The old gentleman behind the reception greeted us. He had a kind smile on his face and deep wrinkles under his eyes. "Slept like a rock," Jacob said. "But weird question. Do you know anything about the red marks on the snow outside? I told my girlfriend it's probably wine stains, but..." "Oh, the red snow," the old man chuckled. "It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? Especially tourists seem to enjoy the mystery surrounding it." "Mystery?" I asked. "Well, you see, young lady, there is not a definitive answer as to what causes the red snow. Some say it's drunk folks walking home through the snow while spilling their last bits of mulled wine." "But then there would be footsteps," I said. He pointed his finger in the air. "Ah, yes, very good. Well, the other theory has to do with the red bricks that you see around town. They say that when it snows, Some of the flakes drop down the facades, take some color down, and then drop to the ground. His gaze started shifting from me to Jacob and back. And others even say that the sky bleeds over our little town to punish it. For what? I asked. Who knows? Maybe. People who settled here upset the sky gods. The old man chuckled. But don't you worry. It all gets cleaned up. The old man was right. After we walked out of the cafe where we had breakfast in the town center, there was no sign of red snow anywhere, but I still couldn't get it out of my mind. Jacob and I discussed all the different theories, but finally decided that it was probably a little trick the locals played on visitors. A little mystery to add to the charm of the Christmas town. We spent the rest of the day exploring the town some more. We jumped from shop to shop, simply to avoid the cold. It was also the reason we didn't hike up to the castle. I had underestimated how freezing it would be. In the center of town was an old church that seemed really popular. I suggested checking it out, but Jacob was against it because he thought it would be boring. Finally, it started getting dark, and we made our way to one of the Christmas markets. The market had dozens of small wooden stalls selling little presents and a bunch of different food. There was a small ice skating rink in the middle, and a stage where music was played. The lights and the smells of anise and cinnamon pulled you in and made you feel welcome and warm. We had some hot beverages and waffles. We talked to some other people who were visiting town. Everything was close to perfect. And then it started snowing. As those little snowflakes fell from the ground, everything around us came to a sudden halt. It felt as if the people around us stopped moving for just a second, and then there was one communal big breath. That's when everything got out of control. The jolly Christmas music from the stage turned into a distorted mess of sound. The fairy lights started flickering, and suddenly, all the people around us started moving in all directions. Some were shouting, or screaming even. I was starting to get pushed around, so I grabbed Jacob's arm. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, my voice trembling with fear, but the look on my boyfriend's face was the opposite. He smiled as a snowflake fell on his face. He smudged it away with his finger and left a trail of blood. "It's the beginning of winter, Ava," he said with an eerie calmness. "Isn't it beautiful?" I don't know what happened inside of me next, but I pushed Jacob away and ran with the crowds. The town was still new to me, and at night, I didn't recognize much, so I had no idea where I was going. All I knew was that something was wrong, and that my gut shouted at me to run. On my way through the alleys, I stumbled into a group of people. Their faces were just as calm as Jacob's. A woman smiled and asked me who I was and where I came from. "You're not from here," a man answered before I could say anything. "Who brought you? Are you the offering?" the woman asked. I stumbled back and kept running. I can't say how much time passed until I finally recognized the street where our hotel and Jacob's car were. I didn't have the car key, so I had to get to the room. All I knew was that I wanted to get away from here as fast as possible. The reception was empty, and I ran up the stairs to our room. When I opened the door, I realized that Jacob was already there, and he was not alone. The old man from the reception was with him. My heart was racing, and I contemplated leaving again, but then I thought I might be overreacting. Nothing had happened, and besides, I had nowhere to go. I would probably be safer here with Jacob. "Ava, it's fine. You can come in," he interrupted my thoughts. I stayed frozen in the door. "What's going on?" I muttered. The old man gave me a sympathetic smile. "You are safe, girl. They found someone else." "Someone else?" "Another offer." "Grandpa," Jacob said in a stern voice. "It didn't happen. She doesn't need to know," he whispered. Yes, I fucking need to know. What is going on? Why did you just call this man Grandpa? I shouted. The fear was replaced with a rush of rage. I started moving towards the window. You don't want to see this, honey. Stay there, the old man said. But I didn't stop until I was almost at the window. And then I saw what they were looking at. At the house opposite the street, a group of people were standing by a big open window that had a flagpole next to it. When I saw what they were doing, my blood froze. They were hanging up a body on the pole. A million thoughts were running through my mind, but before I could act out on any of them, Jacob had already grabbed my arm. He pushed a syringe into my skin, and everything went dark. When I finally opened my eyes, I was sitting in a driving car. It was day. When the memories of the last night came back to me, I grabbed the door handle, but the door was locked. You want to jump out of a driving car? I heard Jacob say next to me. His eyes were fixed on the road. My heart was beating so fast that I thought it might jump out of my chest. Are you alright, honey? You passed out last night after a few too many drinks. Cut the crap, I interrupted him. What the actual hell happened last night? He sighed. So you didn't forget. What a shame. Regret rushed through me. I should have faked it until we were out of the car. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I actually really like you, Ava. You might not believe me, but that's a requirement. Requirement? For what? I whispered. For the offering, of course. Every December, on the first weekend, the blood snow arrives. And those 2 nights each need an offering. I'm really sorry, Ava. But if we don't do it, the snow won't stop until it buries us all. He was quiet for a second. I brought you to my old home, Ava, because you matter to me. And it wasn't certain that you would become a sacrifice, only a possibility. But you were lucky. Lucky? I repeated. You weren't chosen. It would have been even better if you'd got blacked out like on the first night. All would have been fine, but you made things really difficult for me. I had been dating Jacob for a whole year, and I never realized what was wrong with him. I trusted him too much. I don't even know where this hell town is that we visited. Jacob surprised me with the trip, and I slept all the way when we drove there. Now I understand that he probably drugged me then too. I didn't say anything about that. I didn't confront him any further. All I needed was to get away from him. You said you weren't gonna hurt me. Jacob smiled. I won't. I'll take you back home, or I can drop you off on the way. Grandpa said it would be fine. He said nobody would believe you, even if you told them. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read with the author's permission. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit post. Want to support me? Check the link below where you can leave a tip if you wish. And remember, don't let the shadows get too close. Good night.